Well, hello there. How is everyone? I hope you're all well. Joseph Scott Morgan, a distinguished scholar of applied forensics, has come forward and he's spoken out about Bryan Kohberger and this most recent list, that list of things that they found. The things that a lot of people turn around and say, well, look, some of it could have been his parents. It might not have even been his, which is right. It could have been. Might not have been his gun, might not have been his knife, might not have been his dark clothing, might not have been his computer, his hard drives, or anything. Could have been his dad's. But look, what does it all mean? What's he said? What has he come out and said? He said this. He said, look, this is now all about tiebacks. You look at how bad this crime was. And I said it before in a video a few days ago. I talked about the fact that would somebody be able to lose their virginity on a case and a crime like this? Many, many people have turned around and said, could this guy have done what he did in the amount of time that he had to do it? The car was seen at around 6-7 minutes past 4 in the morning. So he was still trying to park, and then he was seen leaving. So he was back in the car and leaving and caught on a camera at 20 past. So the crimes, in effect, happened in around 10 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes perhaps, to go in, find, and unalive these 4 university students. Because in one hand, we're saying, look, because of the mistakes he made with regards to his cell phone, potentially taking things back home, this evidence, and the various other things, the knife sheath being left behind, even though we can't 100% sure know that it was indeed a K-bar knife that was used. We don't know. There are some people who are disputing the fact that when you think back to what people have said about the injuries, even though that is debatable on where that information came from, some people who know of these weapons have turned around and say, well, what they're saying about these injuries don't tie in with the way in which a K-bar knife would work. So, that's been put out there into the ether. Anyway, I digress. But what he's saying is, look, they will now be looking to see whether they can find any DNA off of any of these items and tie them back into other cases that are perhaps on the peripheral around these areas, perhaps around Pennsylvania. Perhaps this wasn't Bryan Kohberger's first rodeo. And look, guys, and I've said it time and time again, and I'll say it again, innocent until proven guilty, and I believe in due process. I don't support the guy, but I do support due process. Like I support freedom of speech. I support people having an opinion, and they should be privy to information. It's one of the fundamentals in what countries are built on: freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom of information. And around this case, that seems to be being blocked to a degree that I feel goes beyond what it should. In this case, we've disputed things and debated things like public safety. Could Bryan have done this completely alone? Have they concluded this too quickly? And is there indeed someone else out and about that could pose a risk to the public? How do we know there's not? How do they know unless they know something that isn't contained within the affidavit, so on and so forth? They must have a lot more, and they probably do have a lot more. But look, what this guy's saying is there will be digital imprints of where Bryan, if he's our guy, has been, what websites he's been on, what chat sites he's been on, what information he has left, what he has discussed. Has he spoken about any fantasies and things that he perhaps wants to do or has thought about doing, or wants to speak to people who have done these things and how they tie into this crime? We've talked a lot of times about the Papa Rogers account and whether they could potentially tie him to that, and the information that this account was seemingly speaking about, again, like the knife sheath. You wonder whether the knife sheath was planted there for a reason. Was that indeed for misdirection? And did whoever left it there, if we're saying Bryan, did he make a mistake by leaving it there and it did have his DNA, when in fact he left it there to throw people off about what weapon was used, so they were looking for, in effect, the wrong weapon? Lots of questions still, and again, it won't be until June that these questions start coming in, but I found it interesting that a specialist, an expert, someone who is, recognised as being a leader in his field, had very similar thoughts to what some of us are having about when you consider the crime itself, the severity of it, the speed of it. It's hard to imagine that he wasn't involved in anything else. There wasn't nothing that led to this. This was a big thing to make your first rodeo. So I ask you down below, where are you at this stage? If Bryan, and that's an if, I'm not saying he is, I'm not saying he isn't, but I'm saying if he is the guy, and I know some of you will be, yes, he is. You're 100% sure he is. So if he is, was this the first outing for him? Or is there something else that has been missed? And will that now be brought to light? Let me know down below, and I'll catch you all in the next one.